Hello, everyone. It is that Weems guy, and we are here for yet another episode. Tonight, we're here to talk all about John Hearne and his traveling roadshow, which is Cognitive Pistol and his Who Wins, Who Loses, and Why lecture. Uh, John asked how many of his students would I like to have on the show as panelists. And I said, well, find enough of them that we could fill up an episode if we get each one of them to say something nice about you. And so he made a really, really, really long list and they all showed up. So I don't know if they're going to all say something nice or they just came for the chance to Hearne live. So even Hearne was Hearning himself in a text message earlier today. So here we go. John, tell everybody who you are and tell them about your classes, just the general rundown and how it's laid out.
John Hearne, owner, chief marketing director, director of training for Two Pillars Training, longtime law enforcement officer. Have had my shingle out now for about 3.5 years after being mentored by Tom Givens for 20 plus years. I have a series of classes that I go around the country and teach. The two big ones are a lecture that runs about 8 hours or so called Who Wins, Who Loses, and Why, Understanding Human Performance When Death is on the Line. And then I have a shooting class called Cognitive Pistol with Tactical Anatomy. And I think at least Kevin has said I have a third class that I occasionally run called Defeating Violent Criminals, analytical and tactical analysis as well.
All right. Now we're going to go around and have each of the panelists introduce themselves. First up, Kevin Creighton.
Hi there, Kevin Creighton. I run Quietly Armed. I'm based out of Florida. I teach concealed carry and basic pistol and a couple other shotgun classes. I work full-time for the National Rifle Association. I run shootingillustrated.com.
Aqil.
Hey, I'm Aqil Qadir, Citizen Safety Academy here in the sunny climates of Middle Tennessee. Where we do gateway instructor development and gateway instruction. Me and Tip Johnson do that kind of thing. I'm also Range Master Staff. And so lately I've been teaching the combative pistol class with Tom, going around the country doing that. So.
All right. Our next two guests are about 10 miles apart in the Midwest, and it appears they are sharing the same internet connection. So we may have some technical difficulties running out in and out. First, Everett Snyder. Everett, you're muted.
How about now?
There you go.
All right. I'm Everett Snyder. I'm retired Federal Bureau of Prisons and U.S. Air Force Security Forces. I currently teach part-time at Top Guns. That's my retirement gig. I also have pursued the Range Master Instructor Development course and been to a couple classes with Dave Spalding, Lee, and now John Hearne.
All right. And now you need to get on the bicycle and start pedal powering the internet so Sheriff Parsley can introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Jerry Parsley, a retired sheriff in Clark County, Illinois. Been 36 years there, but I teach at the Police Training Institute at the University of Illinois. A lot of basic recruits there in the advanced and tactical classes. Did a lot of contracts for the U.S. State Department over about a 7-year period. Also a range master gun site, and I have my own little side jobs when I have time. And I am a very happy camper with the latest John Hearne class.
All right. Randy.
I'm Randy Harris from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Headset on here. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Run Harris Combative Strategies. I'm the owner, chief instructor, chief cook and bottle washer, and I sweep the place out. Let's see. I have trained extensively with Tom Givens and Craig Douglas. Taught for Suarez International for 15 years. And then I've been doing my own thing for about the last 5 or so. And let's see what else. I've taken class with Hearne as a fellow student. I've taken class from Hearne as an instructor, and I think Hearne may have actually done one of my classes or something. So, anyways, I've had as much Hearne as I can take. So
We all have.
Yes.
Before we get too far, I need to, in the interest of full disclosure, some of you might be wondering why I invited Kevin. He's new here. A bunch of us are law enforcement or former law enforcement. I was really tired of that backhanded compliment of you shoot really good for a cop. So I invited Kevin just so we can say, hey, you shoot pretty good for a gun writer.
Fair.
Mm,
I've seen writers shoot. That's a fair comment.
Well, and finally, we have Mindy Kay Ray, she's not the only lady that has ever taken Hearne's class, but as was pointed out prior to the record button being hit, she's the only one that has taken this class that doesn't currently have a restraining order out against him.
Currently doesn't mean it's not in the works.
Yeah, hers is pending.
Right. Hey everybody, I am Mindy Kay Ray out of Fort Worth, Texas, and probably the only just civilian here. I don't have prior military. I don't have prior law enforcement, and started training back in 2008. Started teaching about 2010 and found Tom Givens last year. So currently advanced range master, waiting for him to put up masters. Trained with Eric Gelhaus. And I say this completely unashamed. I'll tell everybody, John's class was my favorite class so far this year. Now I still have 40 more to go. It was definitely my favorite class of the year. So I teach here in North Fort Worth, primarily ladies. I do teach men too, but I work with a lot of real estate agents, a lot of unarmed self-defense, and I run an Armed Women of America chapter. And pre-COVID, we had almost 100 ladies on the roster, and now we're down to about 50 ladies on the roster, which is amazing.
Well, there's no need for you to apologize for not being a cop. It's not like you're a Canadian.
Right?
I'd apologize for being a Canadian, but that would, you'd be playing the type.
All right. I guess we'll get started in talking about the content. John, you want to talk about cognitive pistol first, or the lecture, or what?
So you can take each class independently, but I think it's useful to think of the two as interrelated. The way I pitch it is that, who wins, who loses, and why is the lecture. But in that class, I list a lot of stuff related to training and shooting that we should be doing that we don't for a variety of reasons. A lot of them business related, complexity, and stuff like that. So while cognitive pistol with tactical anatomy is a standalone class, it's really meant to complement the lecture as far as that goes. So a lot, there's a quick lecture at the beginning of the class, but a lot of the material that we cover as far as decision making under stress, increasing complexity of decision making, ignoring noise and confusion, man-on-man shooting, all those elements that I mentioned you should be doing. The whole goal of cognitive pistol is to bring those into an accessible format that's available not just to like necessarily high-end technical shooters, but the entry requirements for the class are fairly low, and I think high-level shooters get a lot out of the class, as well as people who are really just beginning the journey. If they can keep 5 rounds in a 5-inch circle at 5 yards, they'll be able to get something out of the class.
All right. So Kevin, why did you sign up for the Hearne classes?
Because Richard Smith said, dude, he's coming to town. You need to sign up for him. And that's part of it. The reason why I did is because I caught who wins, who loses, and why at TACCon. And I have literally a notebook full of notes that I did from that lecture. And that Evans and I were just sitting there, reliving our college years, furiously scribbling notes back and forth as we were taking it. It's a mind-blowing lecture. I really enjoyed that. And I said, okay, if he's coming to town doing a shooting class, I need to be a part of this. And it was extraordinary. I'm rest assured, I'm the other person here who doesn't have a background in military or law enforcement, but I have been a competitive shooter for a while. And I'm used to using competition as my brain scrambling mode, where the timer goes off and you just sit there going, well, I had a plan for that stage, but it's gone now. So we'll just have to make it up as we go along. And I thought that put my brain under stress. the cognitive pistol class was the most stress I've had on my brain outside of force on force. Those lights are just evil. I'd like to know what fever dream, what drugs you were on when you came up with that idea of having them all around like that. It was just a mind-blowing experience.
Now, are you sure it was Richard Smith or was it Memphis Beach that told you you needed to take the class?
They have interchangeable parts. Yeah, so yeah.
All right. Aqil, what prompted you to take the class? And you're muted. Aqil, you're muted. And you're still muted. And you're still muted. So we'll go to Everett while you figure it out. Everett, what prompted you to take the class?
Well, I was a training junkie from the time I was in the Air Force, reading the old paper magazines with Dave Spalding and such. So when I retired, I reached out to Dave, took his training. I found you, saw John. I really liked the format, the idea of it, and reached out to him. Was fortunate enough to have him accept my invitation to host him, and just want to expand the stressful stuff, because we've all shot matches with the buzzard or did training where you think it's stressful, but this went 3 or 4 levels above that. So
All right, stressful in a good way or stressful in a bad way?
in a bad way, but a good way.
Okay.
Because most people don't push it. They just go and they shoot paper targets. We all see them at the range, and even agency guys, they get to that point and then they're cruise control and they never really push themselves. And that's what I wanted, was to get pushed into areas where it's more than just sound. You've got to use your visual reference, and it did exactly what I was hoping for.
All right, Aq, do you have audio yet? And no, we don't have audio from Aq. It's not showing you as muted on my end, but we're not getting anything through. All right, so why don't you log out and try to come back in? Sheriff?
Okay, I had heard of John, listened to you quite a bit on your different podcasts with different people, and had a lot of fun listening to the Geek Twins for a while, and wanted John to come around, and Everett got him in. So with that, my daughter is a law enforcement officer too, and she's just in her 3rd year on the road. And it is kind of important to me that she's got a clue what's going on beyond the academy, which is a basic academy. So took the class, she took the class, a couple other friends took the class, but I learned some things about the tactical anatomy that I probably hadn't known, or if I did, I forgot. And as you know, I've been on force for real. And it's still an ongoing process with trying to learn new things at an older age. And then with the recruits that I teach all the time at the academy, it becomes very important that I make sure that when they get handcuffed and get thrown in the deep end of the pool, they got a resource to go to because they've already heard it. There's already that road built for them. All they've got to do is stay on the road, stay out of the ditches. So it becomes pretty important that with the anatomy, you need to know where to shoot. And then the lights, that was just kind of boggling for a while. But it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. And regardless of how it appears on these things here, he really does lay it out pretty simple for you. And it became, for me, it's like, okay, I'm deaf as a rock, and he talks fast. But we got it all in, and we had a good time with it and learned a lot. And I'm still trying to digest it all. So that's going to be a little bit of time coming for me, because I got to go back through the book and just start laying it out piece by piece for me, so I know what I can integrate in for the recruits. Because it's really, for me, it's all about them and my kid being the cops. So I just had a fabulous weekend.
All right. Well, after we get through with this round of questions here, we'll come back to what you learned about tactical anatomy as our next question. Randy?
Where to begin? I think I probably met John about 2000, maybe 6 or so at the, I just went completely blank. The Warrior Talk Symposium there at the old mothership at Rangemaster in Memphis. And then, you know, he and I just over the years have batted different ideas around at different classes that we've been to together. And it is kind of interesting to see how a lot of the stuff we've talked about over the years actually ended up in that class. I took, I guess we co-taught a class here in the Chattanooga area, which half of it was his lecture part of the class. And then last July, when he was offering it there in Nashville, I and my assistant and another one of our guys here locally went out to do the tactical anatomy class on that Sunday. So it was pretty cool. So the lecture the lecture day pretty much sets the table for the shooting class, and it's not your typical shooting class. One of the things I always complain about is people want to roll out a target that's the size of a king size bed sheet, and any hit on it anywhere is okay. Well, it's not. If you don't shoot people in important places, they don't stop what they're doing very quickly. So it's something everybody needs to see.
Randy, it's only okay if you do it in under a second.
Well, that's true too.
That's the important thing.
Well, as far as the lights go, it's just a go signal. It's just like a drag race. You're just waiting for the right light to come up. So.
Mindy Kay?
Let's see. So how did I come across the class? And believe it or not, it's one of those crazy things where Eventbrite worked. It just worked for you, John. Seriously. I was on there. I was looking for some more advanced training. And I went to Eventbrite, and there's nothing in DFW. That came up in Shreveport, and Shreveport's 2.5, 3 hour drive from me. It depends on if there's cops follow me or not. But so I don't know how, but I missed the lecture day. That never even came up on Eventbrite. And so all I got was the shooting day. And yeah, I was blown away. And one of my biggest takeaways from that class, and he's so right. And ever since that class, I keep that in the forefront of my mind when I'm out and about situational awareness. And I'm a competitor. I started 3-gun pistol matches and tactical shotgun matches long before I ever got into the defensive realm. And there's not going to be a beep going off in your ear saying, okay, girl, let's go to work. Let's see how fast you can do it. Most of the time it's going to start on a visual cue. And that just blew my mind. And so I'm still trying to get into the lecture. So, yeah.
All right. Let's give it another try.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Got you.
Awesome. I've been watching John develop that thing over the years from, taking every lecture that he's, as it kind of grew from a 1-day thing to a 2-day thing. And I was sitting, take the notes, and then, the questions on pistol form and all that. And very interesting to me, because what I think he's doing is, answering that question that we all want to know as defensive practitioners is, what do you need to be able to do to survive? What does that look like? I mean, what's the best way to prepare for it? And I think John's taking that to the next level. And so when he said he was doing the class, and I knew about the lights, and I'm watching him put those together. As an instructor, I think it's important to be able to give people, realistic stuff. And so I said, I got to go check it out. And it was better than I thought it would be. Honestly, I knew it was going to be good, but I was impressed. Really, I knew it was going to be good, but I was like, John, this is, lights had me jumpy, I was like, okay, this is working. I'm feeling this thing, what I'm saying? So I really think anybody who wants to really understand what they need to do, and especially instructors who are teaching other people this stuff, need to really consider it.
All right, Sheriff, you mentioned, the tactical anatomy portion of the class and how important that is. And I do think, while I have not taken the whole class as John runs it out, I've helped with the different portions of it and at the conclave, and I've been to the lecture numerous times. You mentioned the tactical anatomy. In most shooting classes, we're shooting paper or cardboard that is just, on a stationary target backer. And it's just, you get the go signal and you shoot. Whereas this class actually had some things that make you take anatomy into account. What did you learn about tactical anatomy and what is the importance of that?
Well, the tactical anatomy, just the anatomy itself, where things are placed, the location of where you don't always get what you think you're going to get in a gunfight. May not get hardly anything. That's the problem. But you don't know. You don't get to pick the gunfight. The gunfight picks you. You just have to be able to respond properly to it. So with the 3D targets that overlaid, it did change the entire outlook of just a flat piece of paper on a piece of cardboard. So you need to understand that when you start using real people as targets, they do have the ability to shoot back and they can constantly move. So the angles probably are going to be difference between life and death if you don't use them right. It's hard for me yet to be able to put it in context to where when you shoot a human being, you need to understand what that human being is actually made of. And I impress the point on the recruits a lot that, hey, you're shooting real people. So you need to understand what's probably not going to happen like you see it on TV, because that's all fiction. And it put it into context for me, because I had a friend, a deputy sheriff to the county to the north of me in the mid 80s that was at a domestic, and guy pulled out a pistol on him. He wasn't properly mentally prepared for it. And what he did when the guy pulled it on him, he was wearing body armor, and it was only across the front of his chest and his back. He didn't have any panels on the side. And when he went to turn, he raised his arm to cover his face, turned broadside, and the guy put a 230 grain hardball all the way through, hit everything going through, and he dropped dead right there. That is something that you don't always forget, especially when it has a name that you are very close to attached to it. And the tactical anatomy that John lays out for you is you have the 3D target and you have what you really need, and it's important to hit on the backside of it. And the Christmas paper tube across the back for the spine, that was grand. But it's not as big as what you think, or we always assume that it is. So that was huge for me. But after talking to my daughter on the way home about it, she goes, it kind of bothers me now how little I don't know about what I should know. And I go, yeah, I'm probably thinking that about 30 years ago. So that's why it's important to me, the way he lays it out, the way it's explained, the way the class is laid out. It just puts it in a good marching order. So you kind of understand it from the beginning to the end, and then you go put application to it on the next day. And that was just brought a lot of things home that I really wish I may have paid attention to a long, long time ago, but it is what it is.
And there you go, folks. That's coming from someone who has toted a firearm professionally for approaching 4 decades now, Sheriff?
Yep, just over 4 now.
Just over 4 now. All right, and who has quite an extensive training background as both a student and as an instructor to be talking about what the lessons are in this class and how we're laid out. That's something you should be paying attention to. And, he mentions the 3D targets. that in and of itself is a huge eye opener. At least I think so, because I still remember as a young officer the first time I actually pointed a pistol at a live human being to the point that I was looking through the sights at them. It looked a lot different than a two-dimensional target that was flat and stapled and wasn't moving. It looked a lot different. And if you're just standing there doing repetitive drills at 3 and 7 yards on a very forgiving target zone, you are not preparing yourself for what you may have to encounter. Kevin, any comments on the tactical anatomy?
Yeah, I loved how I was privileged enough to have the criminal mindset to start the first day, and then he did who wins, who loses, and why, and then we did the cognitive pistol and tactical anatomy on the third day, and the way that the criminal mindset class and then the tactical anatomy worked together, because he analyzed the Newhall incident and the 1986 Miami shootout and what went wrong there, and then said, and these are the lessons we can learn from those incidents, and now we're going to apply them to the range the next day. Just the way those two, it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to learn this. You go, oh, the reason why we're learning this is because people's lives were lost in the 70s and the 80s because of the failure of making hits in the right spot.
Aqil?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What was driven home was the area that we need to hit to stop an attacker and change their behavior is a lot smaller than we think it is. It moves. And what he brought was bullet trajectory, something I hadn't thought about when hitting, people. You know what I'm saying? We think that, because we're looking at 2D, if it goes through here, then we assume that it's going to do what it needs to do. But when you start turning people around and doing different angles for them, you may still go through somebody's chest and not hit what you need to hit, for example. So that was driven home. And something I quote him now when I'm talking about it. He said, one of the things I wrote down was the blood vessels from the mediastinal area, as they go out, they get small quick. And so now, that helped me. And when me and Ryan were putting together Parking Lot Pistol, we look at it, Parking Lot Pistol, something to prepare people even to go into John's class, because we want to start getting people used to, especially once you become an intermediate level shooter, you want to start shooting at smaller targets, because those areas, like you said, they're smaller, a lot smaller than we think they are, and they move.
Yeah, you really got a target area, an effective target area that's about the size of a 3x5 guard or a big orange small grapefruit.
Yes.
And no matter which angle you're shooting from.
Right.
You got anything else up?
Oh, one more thing, and
Sure.
and keeping shots towards the middle, where the spine is, so that even if you miss low, let's say you go lower than the diaphragm, you miss low, that you might still have an effective shot. So, I mean, he just narrowed it down for me a lot, and I think people need to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Everett?
The 3D targets was an excellent eye opener. When I was with the Bureau of Prisons on the SORT, I just spent an extensive time doing that. I went to a sniper school and we did some off-angle shoots, but they were paper targets, so you didn't get the effect that a 3D really does. So that was really an eye opener. As far as the cognitive part, using the visual signs to shoot or no shoot, and not to keep referring back to BOP, but on SORT, we ran into an issue, whether it's SORT, USPSA, or anything. When you run a timer, everybody starts gaming it. When people start gaming, they cheat, right? Our fundamentals fell apart to the point that our whole doctrine, we pulled timers out of the standards drill because people were getting away from doing solid technique. They were just being sloppy because they were trying to beat the clock. With the seeing the lights, you didn't know if you were going to shoot or not shoot. You had to react and then made a decision or change the decision on the fly. That was an excellent part of the training.
All right. Randy?
As far as the anatomy part goes, just from a personal standpoint, or at least family standpoint, my great grandfather actually killed 2 guys in a gunfight in 1920 after both of them had shot him. They hit him in unimportant places and he hit them in important places. So, that's always kind of been with me, is like, the better you can shoot, and the better results you're going to get. I normally tell people in class, there's 5 things that stop people. Generally, it's going to be fear or pain. It's going to be one of those 2 things. Those are for the non-dedicated opponents. But if they're a dedicated opponent, you're pretty much going to have to either drop their blood pressure to the point that they go to sleep, have a disruption of their spine, or turn the switch off in their head. And that's what John gets to in the class, is pretty much, if you're not hitting those important structures, then it's really a crapshoot on what kind of effect you're going to have on dude that you're putting the bullets into. So pretty much, just as a rule of thumb, no matter what angle you're at, try to hit him in the spine, and you're probably going to get done what you need to get done.
Mindy Kay?
So in reference to the front facing targets that he had, I actually had my first. Women are very literal. And so you can tell me that a cylindrical object that hits a cylindrical object may very well just hit it and, go around. But I actually got to see that on my target. And it was fascinating to see it, and then you go so far as to take the metal rods and you go through each one of your holes, and, you get to see right there in real time, did your shot mildly inconvenience them by making it a little hard to breathe if it was upper right lung or upper left lung, lower left, lower right? Or did you do the work that needed to be done in order to completely incapacitate this person? And, you've got your rods and you're running them through there, and that's just an absolute. It's just an absolute. Either you did it or you didn't do it. And there needs to be more women taking this class because of how our brains are wired. We need the minutia, we need all the words, and we need to see that shot with the 3 phases. You've got the spinal column, you've got the important organs on the backside, and you've got the body, the shape of the body on the front. A woman needs to see that, so that she realizes either she's doing good work or she needs more training. It's fascinating.
John, do you have any wrap-up thoughts on the tactical anatomy? And we should point out that you were an EMT prior to being a cop.
EMT and basically a park medic. So it wasn't just an EMT. I've intubated people, put needles and tubes in people, done my intubations at surgical OR. So, and I also actually, now that I've been teaching the class for 3 years, I actually completed Dr. Williams' tactical anatomy class, his instructor class. So I guess I know something. I thought it was funny, Mindy mentioned this, but we talk about how headshots just easily deflect. And I'm using a plastic 3D shell. And I would say at least once in almost every iteration of this I've taken, somebody has kind of put a very weak hit on a headshot, and like literally the plastic shell, because of its curvature, meaning the curvature of the bullet, sends it somewhere else. And you would think that it's a bullet hitting plastic, it should go through. So the tactical anatomy is eye-opening for a lot of people, especially when we start to see, because when you examine shootings, you see weird stuff. And I think I'm on the right track because we're starting to see some of that weird stuff as well.
Agreed.
All right. We've had several mentions. Yeah, go ahead, man.
If I may, I did redeem myself. I did boop the snoot, and I still have that picture right up the nose hole. Okay.
Yeah, and
Booping the snoot is one of the most important fight stopping techniques that there is. And, there's nothing like a good boop to the snoot.
He got it.
Yeah, we're talking about the rods. What we're talking about is on a 3D target. You take a rod and stick it through. This shows the bullet trajectory through basically a 3D torso, and it doesn't lie. It tells the truth. And you get a shallow angle shot on someone, and you actually look at it on an anatomy overlay, and you realize, oh wow, that was in the A zone, but it's really not that. Didn't touch anything that would actually stop this fight. We had several mention of the lights. And John has a very unique approach to his start and stop signals, because there are stop signals and involved here, and decision-making signals. You have to actually process information that is before you and make decisions. And that's different than the overwhelming majority of typical shooting classes out there. Most competitions, the start signal is a beep. Most application side shooting classes, the start signal is a whistle, or you may get turning targets if you're on a dedicated law enforcement range that's got good funding. John's found a kind of unique way for the start, stop, and decision-making process to be integrated into the shoot or not shoot decision-making. Kevin, you commented earlier on the lights and their impact on you. What general comments and what were your takeaways from that?
So, and forgive me, John, you'll have to correct me on the actual, what the lights mean and stuff like that. But basically there was a light that was verbal challenge. There was a light that meant perform a failure stop or Mozambique drill. And what was the third one there as well, John?
That's what's evil about the class, is that what you do changes along the way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not just about delivering a set pattern.
Right.
I've had pretty good talks with this about hole shooting, and it's like, that whole process is important, but you want to do more than just pattern recognition. So I'm
Right.
evil enough to change the meaning of the lights as we go. I do try to be nice and layer everything on slow. So, like on the first set of drills, one light is a headshot, 2 is a pair to the body, 3 is a draw and challenge, because I don't think we do that enough in class, but it reflects the reality of defensive gun uses, especially on the civilian side. But then I'll add, I'll either surround you with those lights, or I'll actually have multiple lights. And, one is what to deliver. The other one is your permission to deliver it. So you can't just see one thing and do it. You actually have to, contextualize the information, then actually carry out your decision-making process. Some do that better than others.
Well, what got me was, for you can't really go to a class these days without doing some kind of, okay, scan and assess post-action drill. This was a pre-action scan and assess. And more than that, we had to look and say, okay, that one went off there behind us. So we had to, stay safe with our firearms while putting literally our heads on a swivel. And more than, and I know I did it, the light went off, or it wasn't even, we waited for this, okay, something's going to happen. And we drew on that light rather than, okay, and that's what you need to do, the control pair, the pre-challenge drill. So I'm thinking to myself, going, terrific, I just committed aggravated assault. That's awesome. Pulling my gun when it wasn't called for. That level of thinking and process, it's going to be something like that. I've not, been in a gunfight myself, but it gave me an understanding of just how much input going on, how much processing, how fast you've got to make a decision, and it's got to be the right one every time.
There you go. Sheriff?
Yeah, when we got down to the range, looked at everything the way it was set up, I knew we were going to have a problem. So we get there, do some warm-up drills, and that's just his way of getting you warmed up and kind of getting the bugs worked out of you in a class of people. Some of them you know, some of them you don't. I found it pretty mischievous of him at times. He might put a thought in your head and you think you should do what he just said to do. And then you realize that ain't going to happen. You kind of got to just do what you're going to do the way you should do it and just kind of let the chips fall as they were. But I kept waiting, because the first response you have to get, and most everybody has said one way or the other that, everything we do is basically audio driven on a square range. So in real life, it is actually action and movement that you've got to realize that's your go signal. There may not be any words said. You just see movement like a gun coming up at you. Therefore, dude, it's time to go with this. So that really kind of give me a little bit of pause on that. Oh, that is real life. Or you have to see movement. But when the lights started coming on, or you hope that your lights were coming on, it was as important, if not more so, that we have to stop, or we have to reevaluate what is going on. And if we got to stop midstream, then you have to. That's the part that I really found interesting, that things may change right in the middle of it. They may just drop it and quit. And if you've already hit the go button, it's hard to recall what's already been sent. It's like it don't happen. So it was, go ahead. I'll let you.
It reminded me of that old saying. I don't know if you heard it, is don't believe anything you hear and only about 25% of what you see. It was sort of like that.
But you had to do it in order.
Yes.
Yeah, and that to me is one of my big takeaways from the material. Is most of the time is you get told what the shooting drill is, you get a preparatory command that tells you to get ready, that the shooting drill is about to commence, and then you get a start signal, and you may get a signal that your time's up. But all of that decision making is preloaded. It's a lot different when the decision making is taking place along with having to process what the commands are for the drill. It just, I think it changes the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, with the lights, you didn't know how many you were going to get. It was stop and go, stop and go, 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 stop and go. And you never knew what was coming. And I'm not really sure John knew what was coming every time. And he was the one that had his finger on the button. So you couldn't preload or pre-anticipate anything, because I have been through things similar to that, but not like that. That was pretty unique in itself. But that whole look and scan thing, I mean, we're all up on the line. Nobody's doing anything. There's no lights coming on either end, but you got a target facing you. You got the go light. And I looked over my shoulder all the way back to the flipping picnic table. And there that one light was, and I shot, and nobody else did. And they're looking at me like I'm an idiot. And then I'm feeling like an idiot because I think, boy, I just stepped great. But I think I was actually right, but I don't really know right now. I'm still contemplating that problem.
Everybody claims they got a 360 scan. So
yeah, well, you can call BS on that about 90% of the time.
Aq?
Yeah, so he definitely, you had to keep checking your environment 360 degrees and look for changes visually. And like you said, we're not used to doing that. I think what the sheriff is talking about is he prevented us from using those closed motor programs. He described where we know what we're about to do. Like you said, we get to set go and then we just, run through it. But keeping all that ambiguity, which is what really happens out in the real world, he introduced that in a way that nobody else, no other class that I've been to has done it. He basically made us think with a gun in our hand. You know what I'm saying? You had to process information and like I said, I mean, he had guys, I mean, I don't want to give away the class, man, but this guy's running around. It was madness. You know what I'm saying? And in that way, he actually replicated a little of the chaos that goes on in those situations, And like I said, he had me at one point, I was like, man, am I jumpy? You know what I'm saying? Trying to see where things are coming from and saying what's going on. And I was like, man, actually, I'm having a good time because it was something different than we normally do in shooting classes. So it was a wonderful experience.
What was interesting in the class that I attended in Miami, there was a 20-year veteran of British military intelligence, spent time in Northern Ireland, spent time in Iraq, spent time in Afghanistan, and some really, nasty environments, who was also an instructor on the range. And he was just absolutely blown away. He says, I've never been in a class that's even close to like this, as far as the amount of, processing I had to do, the amount of thinking I had to do. and how much I was pushed to my limits in that. And I think that's a pretty, high compliment to what John's done with this class.
Yes.
Everett?
Appreciate that. The other thing that I was going to throw out there real quick is that I almost feel bad. There was a gentleman in the class, and when we started doing the more complex drills, every time a light changed, he twitched. It was greatly amusing to watch, but I always felt bad with him because there's a lot of lights changing when we start to ramp up the noise and confusion. And I knew I was in his head because I could just, a light change and he would literally twitch the whole time. And of course, I was manifesting nothing but the utmost of sympathy and humility for his situation, and took no pleasure
For the
in
record,
his
it wasn't
suffering.
me. Okay, I just want to.
Yeah, the sheriff described you as mischievous. I would use probably a different word, but Everett,
I got off track. Redirect me on the question.
talking about the lights.
Oh, yeah, like I said, we've all done the buzzer, been prepared. We know we're going to shoot. It's hard to change direction once that happens. So the thought process as it happens, you're not going to have those sub half second splits like you think you are. It actually causes you to err on the side of caution.
Yep. All right, Randy, you are a turbo pin holder. Now I want you to go back to that day that you're on the line where you achieved your turbo pin, and now the start signal is a light instead of the buzzer going off.
Okay.
Do you think that changes your equation a little bit?
If it's just a go and no go, not really.
Okay.
If there are other things you have to, if you're looking for a certain color and there's other colors coming up and you've got to, wait on it and actually make a decision, yeah, it's going to change things up.
Or you're
So-
looking for a particular number of lights as your go signal.
Yes. Yep. So
Right.
yeah, it's like someone mentioned before, it's I think it was it's thinking with a gun in your hand.
Right.
Once you get to a certain level of being able to shoot, you're probably not going to run into trouble because you couldn't shoot well. It's because you weren't able to process the information coming in a timely manner. So that's one thing that the light system does. Because it's always okay. As soon as I get the signal, it's time to go. Well, what if you don't get the signal that you were looking for? How do you react to that? And that's why I think some people are getting kind of jumpy. Nope, that light. Nope. What about that one? Nope. What about that one? Oh crap! This light's never is. So yeah, we saw a lot of that in class.
Mindy Kay?
So I don't think we talked enough about the fact that there's lights behind you. There's a light or somebody holding a light, potentially moving with said light. So it really puts you in that, if there's one, there's two, if there's two, there's three, and if there's three, there's more than three, there's a riot. To really be paying attention to what's behind you. It brings a whole new meaning to, bring that gun in to high compressed ready when you turn to look for those lights, because you're on a line of shooters, and of course he doesn't know everybody's background. Maybe he does. I don't know. He's like Superman the way he unbuttoned his shirt in class that day. But the things that scarred me.
And now we know why the restraining orders are in place.
Yes. But to have to be physically, so to speak, looking for the boogeyman behind you, and that light may be the one that is lit up in your shoot, no shoot. It's just, if you could, some people would pay $1 million to go to the moon. I'd pay $1 million to sit in his mind for just a little while and just absorb some more of what's in his brain, because he truly changed the game with the way his mind put the lights together with the class. He did. So, it's just, I don't think I slept for a week. I really don't.
All right, John, any comments about the light concept, kind of how you developed it, what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, just real quickly, the way I look at it, Mindy said you didn't sleep for a week because of the lights, but it balances out with the lecture. So the lecture kind of put you to sleep, and the lights are used to keep you awake. So most people at the end of the experience are about back where they started with.
And
Maybe
see,
you
I
need to go ahead, man.
because everybody in the class, when I walked into the class, they were like, "What are you doing here today? And you weren't here yesterday." I'm like, I swear to God, Eventbrite did not tell me it was here yesterday too, or else I would have been there. But yeah, I highly doubt that. I think everybody in the class was really, they loved the lecture and the class. So yeah, no sleep, team no sleep for a week.
Well, maybe John, you need to flip them and do the lecture on the second day so that people can go home and go to sleep.
Maybe I should offer recordings of it as a sleep aid or something like that.
Well, speaking of the lecture, gosh, I think I've been to it 4 times now.
Well, tell me what it was about.
Yeah, like the full
I don't-
thing. So we're going to go around now. And Kevin, what was your biggest takeaway from the lecture portion?
The idea, that whole automaticity thing, that developing your skill levels to where your nerves are myelinated and it comes to you without having to think of, grip sites, trigger, blah, blah, blah. That was the biggest thing. Oh my goodness, I have to go back and look at my notes. I mean, basically anybody who's taken that class has integrated portions of that lecture into their teaching. I absolutely guarantee it with that. And I know that's definitely been my case with stuff that I teach. Just getting the idea, the whole breakdown of the mental processes of having a plan to work with. It's really a holistic approach that's easy to teach to, that you can pick up and say, okay, I don't need to go to Force Science Institute to get a 4-year psychology degree in order to teach this. I can pick this up and integrate it into stuff that I teach my students, and obviously credit John for coming up with this. That really just opened up a new way of helping my students understand how it's going to might happen if they have to use a firearm to defend their lives.
Sheriff.
So every recruit class that we have has been running well over 100 people. So I've got 100 recruits at a time, at least. And normally about a third of those I have to take the remedial. So the lecture and the explanation and the shooting, I can't compartmentalize those. I have, for what I want to get out of it and what I need to pass on, it's all inclusive. It's all has to be balanced together. Now that may not make any sense at all, but you kind of know what I'm saying. But I start off with these recruits telling them, you can mess up a traffic ticket, you can mess up a report, you can mess up a call for service. You cannot mess up that gun. That gun will save your life, and in the same half second will get you life in prison in the environment that we live in now. And that's why it's very important that as teachers, we must make them aware that that's exactly the reality of it all. And I see it as one great big thing that needs to be discussed in a proper order, so understanding can be had by a bunch of kids who don't know anything remotely close to the faces that I'm looking at that are looking back at me right now. And we all have an understanding of a lot of things, various experiences in life, but they don't have any. And I mean, they don't have any. And therefore, I take great pains to hopefully impress the point on them, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. You can't make a mistake with a gun in your hand because you're going to lose no matter what. You may win the fight, but you're going to lose that battle. So the way the entire process laid out for me is it starts to where we understand that when we become tool users, things only progress from there. Here we are today, and we have really sophisticated tools. but our brains aren't necessarily to the point of understanding how the proper application of the tool should be used. Until you get out and you hear that lecture, then you see everything all combined, and then it gets practically put right in front of your face, and you've got to go back and start fixing those holes on the front and fixing the holes on the back. And then you see really it come to fruition of what is important and how it's important. And yes, John, I am terribly scarred by that damn t-shirt. Just saying.
Aqil.
Again, I think he lays out a roadmap of what you need to be able to do to survive, and that thing that we all prepare for but hope never happens. I mean, the best way is that little graph he puts together with what you can control, what role fitness plays into it, emotional control, which is huge, which is why we practice so hard, hopefully. Well, that's the mindset aspect of it, and then automaticity, which is why we practice. The things that we can't, like the environment that we're in, with whatever's happening and how we're reading it and how we're filtering it through our brain. And then even the role of luck and all that type of stuff he puts into it. And like I said, I've been watching him develop that thing over the years, and it's only gotten better. And I make sure I catch it. I made sure I caught it every year to catch the little changes that he would make and whatever he would pull out from research. And that's another thing about it. It's, very well researched. So it's not just, what he feels is basically, he spent a lot of time in the books and in studies and in graphs and in charts and all that type of stuff, trying to figure out, how we can do better in those situations. And I don't see, it is it's heady stuff, you know what I'm saying? But I still think that it's, if you can stand the, to check out any of it, you really should. It's good stuff.
Everett?
I liked how you tied in the history, the way we've changed, and how stress affects people, and the fact basically you have to work well under stress to perform. Of course, there's always the chance the bad guys or gals going to be lucky, but the only way to be sure that you have the best advantage is to be able to manage the stress. And you really can't talk about the lecture without the second day. So it goes back to the lecture with the learning how to manage stress or how stress affects, and then with the visual reaction that he sets up and exactly how to hit the target in the right spot at the right time.
Randy?
I would say that one of the best things from the class is we always hear this stuff about, well, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're not going to be able to do. You won't be able to do this. You can do whatever you're trying to do. Landing an airplane on an aircraft carrier is one of the most difficult things in the world to do. Yet people do it every day without crashing planes. So you've got an aircraft carrier pitching in the water. You're trying to put an airplane on it. It's pretty difficult. You don't come out of the womb knowing how to do that. How those dudes learn how to do it? They trained in doing it. So if you're constantly I don't even want to say constantly, because not everybody's going to constantly do it. But if you've been trained to do it to an acceptable level of proficiency, and then your mental mapping for what the situation is going to look like or should look like matches up with that, then you're probably going to get pretty good results. One of my pet peeves is that people go, oh, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do that. In fact, I was at a industry event this week. If you guys that see my Facebook page, I put a little video on there. Walking around talking to one of the vendors who sells iron sights, was trying to tell me that iron sights are a lot faster than red dots, and that's red dots way too slow in a serious situation. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that hey, I can show you some video here of a 1.24 second hit on an A zone steel at 25 yards with a red dot. So you can do whatever you're trying to do. So that's what I would say. One of the big things from it is don't get bogged down in what you think your natural tendencies are going to be. Is what's it natural for you to do if you fall in a body of water? Drown. Okay, swimming's not natural. You have to learn how to swim. So you learn how to operate your pistol or whatever, your rifle, shotgun, whatever, to a level of competency, and then make sure that what you're expecting things to look like our reality and not what we've seen in movies, and then you'll probably be in pretty good shape.
Now, Randy, Bruce Siddle says you can't do any of that stuff.
Well,
And now, Mindy, you
don't
say
get us
something.
started on Bruce Siddle.
Mindy, you say something so John can't have the microphone right now since I did that to him.
I didn't get the lecture part. So just a little bit of what was in the morning before we started the class. And I just, I just feel cheated.
Right. I just needed you to feel a little bit of moment there to make John sit there and suffer and wait. I haven't given him the light so that he can respond to that yet. I will say that the big thing that I took away from the lecture was the vast importance of having your motor skills to the level of automaticity so that you are not wasting any brain time, any brain power on trying to operate the tool when operating the tool is necessary, that you are freed up all of your processing power for the problem that is in front of you. And that problem is not operating the tool. The problem is understanding the situation and making the decisions. John, I throw it to you to give you a chance to respond.
I was going to say, I was going to ask you to chime in with that great Lewinsky quote that we always kick about.
An expert has an automatic use of the tool. Was that the one you wanted?
That was exactly the one I wanted. Yep.
All right. What else would you like to throw in about the lecture?
I think the lecture and the shooting class are kind of integral. It really is important to get both, Mindy. And I'll be in Mead Hall in October, so
Yes,
we'll see what we can do.
yes.
Yeah, the lecture is really funny. Just as an aside, is I thought there was a bunch of BS, and I hate to keep throwing out Siddle's name because Sheriff Parsley's just going to have a heart attack or a stroke at some point here, because he has about as much love for Siddle as Tom does. But I thought I would have a 2-hour talk with a bunch of information that debunked this, and I'm really happy that that's after about 10 years, I think I finally got it dialed in pretty good. So I think the lecture is invaluable in and of itself. I didn't intend it to be, but apparently it has great value if you repeat it several times. I think Jim Higginbotham is the reigning champion of repeats, but Chris Baker is up there as well. I think Chris Baker deserves some kind of special commendation or commitment to a mental institution for the amount of time he set for it.
One other thing that I took away from it was the correct pronunciation of the word millenniation, because I took a class here a couple of weeks ago that the instructor kept saying melanated. And finally at about day 3, I was like, it's millenniation. And so from then on in the rest of the class, when he would want to use the term, he would just point at me and I'd say it for him correctly. And it kind of got to be a running joke there. All right, Kevin. Theoretically, John Hearne is coming to your area to offer these classes again. What are you going to say to your students, your peers, anybody that'll listen to you to get them to go take the class?
Well, you mentioned, if you can't do it, this really isn't a class for somebody who can't put 5 rounds, 5 yards, 5 seconds, 5 inches. That's just not that type of class. But if you're looking to think about the process more, that's the class for you. If you've gotten to the point where you feel that you're comfortable, where you've kind of reached the point where, yeah, I'm okay on the Dunning-Kruger curve, this is kind of the class you want to do to say, okay, and here's where my next steps, where keep climbing up that process. This is the class for you. This will help you understand what you need to do and put it in context for you.
Sheriff, I'm going to come to you last on this one because you're going to get a different form of the question. All right, Aqil?
I would say that I would tell people who was asking that this class would probably prepare them for a defensive encounter better than their, local IDP or USPSA match or whatever classes they might be taking. I mean, like you said, once they have their skills to where they can, reliably hit 5-inch circle pretty much on demand, I would push them to this class quickly so that they can set the context for what else. Class like this will prepare them for what else they need to and help prime them for what other classes they need to take in the future. So they'll make better decisions going forward. Because right now we've got this thing where everybody's, racing the clock, and they're not, they're not paying attention to the amount of processing that it takes to come out of these situations on the better side. So that's what I would tell them, that this class here will prepare you better. And then after you get this one, and then maybe you can go do those other things.
Everett?
I agree with Aqil. This class does so much more than just going to IDPA match or anything. Everybody thinks they shoot really, really well when they know the buzzer goes off and they're going to shoot. They need to go to this class, and it's going to show them how much they don't know. And hopefully it makes them go down that line to work on those abilities to think under pressure, perform under pressure, so they get conditioned. So if something bad does happen, they're ahead of the power curve as much as reasonably they can be.
Randy?
I would say that 95% of the people spend 100% of their time working on the last 5% of the solution. And they probably need to work more on thinking about what's happening as opposed to just pressing the trigger. It's not every, as we see in the drills, not everything is a shoot solution. So sometimes just challenging people works pretty well. And if you don't ever practice that, then, the only thing you got's a hammer, then, So what I would tell people if John were coming, one, I would probably say, I've already done this class and I would do it again. If everybody teaches how to shoot, he's going to help teach you how to think. So, and that's arguably the more important part of the equation.
Mindy Kay?
I agree with that. Everybody teaches you how to shoot, but he teaches you how to think. I can't tell you, we can go through fundamental classes. I can take my students through fundamentals. I can take them through drills. It's when I make them think about the scenario at hand, offering a challenge, telling them, hey, stop, I have a firearm, I'm trained, whatever, making them think, and then give them the option, you didn't have to shoot that guy today. If he were coming to DFW, which I wish he would, I would tell every one of my students, this is the class you need to be in. If you can't do 5 rounds in a 5-inch circle in under 5 seconds, then he's going to come in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. You got a goal to work on, and you can do it. If you apply yourself correctly, you can be there with no issues. So just so you know, I'm pretty sure I could fill a class for you, John. I'd be there right beside him. I literally would.
All right, Sheriff, you are planning a training symposium for all of the sheriffs in the United States. And you're going to make all of the sheriffs go through this class sequence. What do you think would change in professional training for our little chosen world here?
Okay, since you're obviously living in a cobweb of nightmares, you need to understand that the sheriffs probably wouldn't go anyway. So, and I'm going to change your question for me.
All right.
I talked to John today on the phone, and I am trying, and I'm in the process now, talking to the director of our academy, because the sheriffs don't need to do this. The teachers need to do this. Our firearms instructor cadre needs to do this. It is not so much the sheriffs, because they're not out on the end of the hand. They're in the office, hopefully getting you what you need to be on the end of the hand. And I'm already starting the process to try to get something for the instructor cadre where we're at, and bringing a whole bunch of the other, when you're at the campus of the University of Illinois. So therefore, you have got a boatload of instructors, because the university, the Police Training Institute of the University of Illinois, the city of Champaign, and the city of Urbana, and in all the outlying little burbs in the county, there is a whole lot of instructors. We make instructors at that academy. They're the ones that need to understand all of this. Don't care what sheriffs know. They're a elected, you know how that goes. It's a popularity contest mostly, unless you've really done something terribly egregious. But they're not really the ones that get it because most of them aren't gun people. The ones that need to understand this to be able to learn it, pass it along, are the instructors. And most of them had no idea who John Hearne was. And I didn't do anything to try to spell that, because you said, what are you going to do if John comes to town? Well, you hide your kids in your billfold. So that's about why you got to look at that. But you need to understand what's going to be important for teaching the new generation of the cops that are coming in. And they just aren't getting a lot of what they really should get in the firearms world. Because most of them won't spend their own dime. But that is who I would get. And I about guarantee you, I'm going to do my best to make it happen one way or the other, either through the MTU or through the Institute itself. So, yeah, we're working on that.
I would agree that the instructors need to be in there as well, but I also think that the agency heads need to be seeing this. You know, I can remember when I was on the board of directors of Gillespie, going to a sheriff's association meeting and trying to get them to send their people to training, and walking up to a sheriff and saying, hey, sheriff, can I help you with some training for your people? And the response was, no, we get our people qualified each year. Okay. And I kind of think that that whoever's driving the ship there, whoever's hands on the rudder, needs to have a thorough understanding of this so that they are mandating that this information gets to their people. And, you know, when you were an agency head, you took care of that for your people. When I was an agency head, I got to mandate things that my people went, I was picking them. I don't necessarily get to pick them all anymore. And, you know, sometimes there's some counter currents that I don't have the ability to deal with anymore. And so I just really think that, it's got to come from the captain of the ship at times as well.
No, I don't disagree, but I do have a lot better faith that the ones I need to get to it are going to be the ones delivering it. Sheriffs, not so much anymore, and there's exception to the rule, I'll grant you.
Yeah.
But just in the part of the world I live, they want nothing to do with it. They
Right.
just don't.
Well, I personally think that this material should be basic firearms training in the academy, mandated across the board. And I know there's no legal authority to mandate that across all 50 states, but if I were curriculum director for law enforcement in the United States, this would be standard academy fare. Right.
Well, if you take this kind of training based on everything that they see, they hear, and they understand, and then you put practical application to it when you go to the range and they understand it with a hands-on approach, they are so far ahead of the curve of where a lot of cops are that's been on 15 years now. And it's still a little troubling to me because I don't know what's going to happen after a certain group of us leave. There's not many people who are as dedicated, who care, that are going to put their own dime and their own humility at risk to do these things, and to bring it back to the ones who really need it the most. And that's it's, and here again, I'm getting close to the end of my my time, probably in the next couple of years, and it's really starting to weigh on my mind a lot of what they're not getting. And if they got these things, or at least you had a certain group of teachers who got this, give it out, delivered it, everybody would be much, much better off, and we wouldn't have the freaking out shooting that we have now just because. And that's to see it. Everybody freaks out, they got to shoot. Well, it can't be that way. It just can't.
All right, we're going to go around the horn one final time, and I want you to give your closing thoughts on the class, as well as where can people find you and anything you got upcoming. Kevin?
Like, it's one of those, there are a few classes that really rethreaded my head when it comes to training and how to learn how to learn how to shoot. And this is definitely one of them. It's one of those foundational classes that just restarted how I approach training with the firearm. So yeah, if you have that core competency, absolutely take this class. As far as where you can find me, I'm at quietlyarmed.com. I'm at shootingillustrated.com. And before the thing when it happened, we mentioned I have a lecture that I give on marketing for firearms instructors, and I will have another one of those with some new content coming up pretty soon.
Sheriff?
Yeah, I'm not really one of those guys that need to be found a lot, but I mean, there's things I'll be teaching. Actually, I'll be teaching with the CEO in Lebanon, Indiana next weekend. There's a revolver class. I think there's probably still a bit of room in it if somebody's interested through Gunsight. But I spend most of my time at the academy teaching these young skulls full of mush, how to be good policemen, responsible policemen. And that's really what I concentrate on. That's what I want to do. I got my own thing going for the concealed carry, but it's kind of secondary to everything else. But those kids are what keep me driven.
Aqil?
Take this class, just take it. I mean, it's before you go off and spend a bunch of money, doing something that may or may not, give you an edge. Please consider it. You can find us at citizensafety.com. And I think this fall, me and Tiff have a gateway instructor in Texas. We've got a gateway instructor in Florida. I've got combative pistol in Cincinnati this fall. I've got combative pistol in Texas. And I think I got a one-day defensive or combative pistol in Texas also. So check us out at citizensafety.com and come hang out with us. It'd be great to see you.
That reminds me, I got to sign up for your Florida class. Thank you for reminding me.
Everett?
I work at Top Guns in Terre Haute, Indiana. We don't have an email contact there, but as far as trying to get a hold of me, I'm on Pistol Forum, not very much, but you can always PM me there. It's ECS 686. My first and last name 85@yahoo.com. I recommend anybody to take this class. You should want to, whether you're an instructor or not. Some of my friends think that only instructors need to take this class, and I told him politely he is way wrong with that. Everybody needs to take some good solid training like John's course. The dividends, you can't put a price on it. As far as anything upcoming, I'm hosting Daryl Bulkey and Brian Eastridge the 5th and 6th at Riley for their HITS hardwired tactical class. And then I'm going to attend the Range Master Advance in Xenia, Ohio in September. And then I'm working with ACT about possibly coming up here next spring sometime. That's all I've got so far.
Andy?
As far as the class goes, again, it's, thinking with a gun in your hand. So if, again, everybody teaches you how to shoot, not everybody teaches you how to think, and you probably need the work on thinking as much or more than you need the work on shooting. As far as catching up with me, you can get me at harriscombative.com. I've also got a Facebook page under Randy Harris, and then also one under Harris Combative. I normally post if I go to a class, I'll generally post a little something. So if anybody wants to get on Facebook and roll back to last July, we've actually got a bunch of pictures and some videos from John's class if you're curious about seeing that stuff. I know in the podcast, it's kind of hard it's theater of the mind, but if you want to actually see some pictures and some videos from it to get a better idea of what we've been talking about, you can check that out on the Facebook page. As far as classes I've got coming up, I've got 3 coming up in August, and then let's see, I've got a point blank pistol skills, both on August 5th in North Alabama, and on August 12th in Oliver Springs, Tennessee, which is kind of the Knoxville area. Those are both one day. And then in Oliver Springs, the last weekend of August, we're doing a one-day rifle and one-day shotgun class. And then I've got the IDPA World Championship coming up after that. So I'll be pretty busy with that. So
Mindy Kay?
I agree again with Randy and with the not everybody teaches you how to think. And for the ladies, it's an amazing class because it's so thought-provoking. You can find me at mindykayray.com or mindykayray@gmail.com if you have questions. I have 2 classes coming up at the beginning of August. We've got a lot of students headed back to school and our world isn't getting any safer. So I have a ladies purse carry class, which I'm trying to break the records of, oh, you can't carry from a purse. So you absolutely can. And you can put shots in an A zone from a purse in about 1.7 seconds. It's pretty decent. And then if you have to do that, all your situational awareness failed, right? So we have that coming up the first weekend in August, and then a women's safety class, which teaches everything unarmed. We go through proper deployment of pepper spray, proper deployment of even a pepper ball gun, so that we don't want to be armed. And so your basic unarmed self-defense moves, it doesn't have anything to do with martial arts. And then if you remember Scott Bedford from our pistol mounted optic class with Eric Gelhaus, he got with me on wanting to do a ladies class for Labor Day weekend. So we went in with another lady that's for the precinct chair here in Tarrant County. And so we're doing a big ladies beginner handgun on September 2nd. So there's just a few things coming up. And then John, I would like to know when you're going to do your instructor certification for your class.
John?
Oh, yeah, that's not the first request I've had for the instructor class. It'll be a few more years before I'm confident enough in the material. I have to know what I'm teaching in order to instruct it and teach you how to instruct it. So we just have to wait on that. As some closing thoughts, I want to thank the panel here. I really do appreciate, I figured that if I asked 6 people to, suddenly show up on a Wednesday, I might get 3 or 4 of y'all. I appreciate all y'all coming up. I had promised the wife that the business might actually make money this year, but after all the beers I buy you guys, I don't see us posting an actual profit this year, but it'll be well worth it. I think that it's important, this material and these classes didn't appear out of the whole cloth. I think I'd like to just take a moment to recognize, for instance, Tom Givens. The casino drill was one of the early exposures to a good cognitive drill. There was an old Durka drill that Tom used to run in class as well. He's sadly largely forgotten. I know I trained with him, but probably one of my greatest inspirations for the 3D stuff was Louis Auerbach. His book, Hit or Myth, is out there and still available. So I borrowed heavy inspiration from Louis. I only got to train once with Louis, but it was an absolute blast. Several people have mentioned meeting the standards. I'll say this without a doubt. The combative pistol the range-master combative pistol that Aqil is teaching is probably one of the better classes to get you to that standard, and you'll get a taste of the cognitive stuff in there. So, dude, that's an awesome class, and Aqil is a great person to be teaching it. So make sure you hook up with Aqil. I need to almost offer a thank you, but it may be better to offer it as an apology. We didn't go through the development of the class, but the first guinea pig run on this class took place at Top Gun Memphis about 3 years ago. And a big part of the cadre were old range master instructor people. And I beat them like a rented mule. There's going to be no way. This is the 3rd iteration of the class what everybody had. So, I appreciate their willingness to participate in the class. It's a lot kinder and gentler than what they endured. Several people that have been through both versions are like, wow, this is a lot nicer as far as that goes. But if you're an instructor and you're doing something new, guinea pigging is important. And sometimes that first dial in on the class is just a little bit of rough. So my thanks and apologies to those guys there as well. Geographically, I'm kind of limited to like the East Coast of the country. If you're on the far West Coast, John Hearne is a name that you need to know. Hearne is doing material that is very, very complimentary. I just did his class out in October. If you don't think I teach that much, Holshin only teaches like 6 times a year as his plans. But dude, has a much better, or has a very complimentary take. He uses the neuros from building shooters, so he's basically running around with $9,000 of fancy electronics to help you do a lot of this stuff as far as this goes. I'll just share a quote that I got out of that class that I think is going to sum everything up here pretty good. In class, he said this quote: "There is no end to the benefits of technical skill, but technical skill is not the end of preparation." End quote. And I think that's a great way to think about this stuff, is that, you know, technical skill is always going to help you out, but that's not everything. So as far as stuff that's coming up, there is a 2-day version of this class. It's not taught as much because it's equipment intensive. The September offering in Culpeper, Virginia has been sold out for a long time, but I think I have 6 seats left in the lecture. So if you're in the mid-Atlantic area and want to catch the lecture that everybody's talking about, there's only 6 classes, 6 seats left in that class. I suspect they'll sell out pretty soon. I'll be in October. I'm going to be at the Meat Hall Range. I'm doing the Who Wins, Who Loses, Why lecture again, and then an offering of the 2-day version of the class. The 2-day version of the class basically takes material from day 1, presents it more slowly. Some of the information bleeds into day 2, but it also has more emphasis on stopping shooting. And, you know, one of the things that we don't get to do a lot of training of, which is moving targets, as Jerry already noted, you know, when bullets start flying, people start moving, and we just don't do enough of that. So that's in October. And then I'm going to be in Camden, Tennessee in November at the Tactical Response facility. I'll be teaching the lecture on Friday. And then I'm actually offering cognitive pistol the one day, once on Saturday, once on Sunday. I'm hoping to fill both of those up, or that was at least my anticipation. So I will be, those are my open dates for right now. And I'm working on the 24 schedule. All that stuff is on Eventbrite, or the twopillarstraining.com will get you there. And again, thank you, Lee, for hosting this. This has to be one of the more painful things Lee has ever had to endure, which is a bunch of people sitting around saying good stuff about me. So Lee himself has made a great sacrifice this night, and I appreciate it.
I just want to jump in here. I wrote up the story on the class for Shooting Illustrated. If you search for John's name on Shooting Illustrated, it'll pop up there. And I believe Recoil also, you know, another magazine I understand that's out there that's not quite as good as Shooting Illustrated, you know, that they did a story on you as well. So if you want to find more information on that, there's other opportunities for this.
All right, I have a trigger management class coming up in Cisco, Georgia, which is Chattanooga area, September the 23rd. Right now, it only has 2 people in it, so it's in great need of enrollment, so we can make that class go. I still have not finalized my plans for the last weekend of October at Red Hill Range in Martin, Georgia, but I will be doing something up there that weekend. On a personal note, I would like to thank all the people that have reached out to me over the last week or so. It's meant a lot. I got a text message from John Monday morning, and basically says, "I don't like hearing you in that much pain unless I'm the one that's causing it." And so that's what we've been here tonight, is an hour and a half of letting John cause me pain by having to make me listen to people say nice things about him. And so for everyone that had reached out, thank you. And thank you to all the panelists that have been on here tonight. John, you're right. I'm shocked. Kevin actually added something to the program. You know, I didn't, like you, I didn't think he was going to be able to add much. And so, you know, there's pleasant surprises and everything.
Right here.
And so with that, we understand that everyone's most important asset is their time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with us.